And welcome to the Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams, joined by our co-host, David Walls. And remember, our mission and vision at Love Lordship is every life and relationship built on the love and lordship of Jesus Christ. So we want to welcome you, David. Welcome to you.
It's good to be with you, Greg.
Thank you, and good to have you listeners and viewers with us. Thank you for joining us, and share this. We're encouraged by that, and more importantly, we think that what we're sharing will help encourage and support others in their Christian conservative views. So we thank you for that. And I don't know about you, David, but I had a pretty good week, man. I don't know if I shared it. We lost our dog last week, and that was tough. It was a freak accident, and as I said to people, it's not eternal, but in the here and now, it's precious.
Yeah.
And so we've been through that, and then this week I got to reconnect with a old college teammate and roommate of mine. Bobby Story was his name, and we lived together a little while after college when he was a couple years younger than I was. But did that. He and his wife and two daughters joined Amy and I. Blaze Pizza, loved it. It was great. So if you haven't checked that out, do that. And so we had a great week. How about you, man?
Man, we've been having a good week. Thank you for attending our legislative update that we had this week. We had a great group of supporters just here and in the Lexington area, but was grateful to share some important updates and to have Senator Donald Douglas and State Representative Matt Lockett with us, and they got to share legislative updates as well. Talk a little bit about some legislation that they've worked on. Senator Douglas, of course, has been championing the medical conscience bill the last two legislative sessions, and Representative Lockett was talking about some of the work he's done to help protect kids online, and the need to continue to do so.
Yeah. So
very grateful to have them, and it's always good to gather folks together.
Yeah.
Eat Chick-fil-A.
Shout out to Blaze Pizza and Chick-fil-A. Now, if you're listening, okay, it's great. But no, it was very good. I enjoyed that. There's a lot of encouraging news, and we knew that from the past session, but also looking forward to how close we were, and hopefully a few more will get over the finish line as far as bills and stuff turning into law. So it was a great time. That was on Wednesday, this a couple days ago, and here we are now through June basically, and it feels like August.
It does. It does.
Yeah, so
and
it feels like Texas, I should say. Yeah. So,
I don't want Texas summers, Greg.
Right.
I like Kentucky summers.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get back to that.
So we can turn the air down outside a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we talked to the weather maker, so we know the one that can do that. Before we jump into any of the topics today, we do want to remind everybody of the Israeli and Iranian conflict. Seemed to be some great news this week on the ceasefire after everything that happened. Regardless of where you are, that's good news, and hopefully it's a little shaky, I think, because of what we're dealing with, but we need to continue to pray for Israel, Iran, and the Middle East.
Absolutely, yeah. We need to be and praying for our leaders, praying for President Trump, in his continued, I would say, bold leadership, as well as all the leaders that are involved.
Right.
Very complex situation, but we need to be praying for the Lord, obviously also praying for our military.
Yes.
And so
hopefully the ceasefire works. I mean, we really do get things settled down, because I think they put a notch or a kink in Iran's plans to do what they've said they were doing and were going to continue to do. So you can't take that lightly. Again, no matter where you. So anyway, continue to pray for all involved in that over there and here in our country as well. I don't know about you, but I'm still celebrating the Scrimeti decision from the Supreme Court.
Yes, and we're of course recording this ahead of Friday, so we could potentially have some breaking Supreme Court decisions that I'm sure you and I can jump into next week.
Right.
But this was kind of a week of anniversaries.
Yes.
As we think about Supreme Court decisions as well, we continue to be thankful, obviously, for the Scrimeti decision and the upholding of laws like here in Kentucky and many other states that protect kids from radical gender transitions. But we also crossed earlier this week the third anniversary of the Dobbs decision that overturned,
praise the Lord,
the most egregious Supreme Court decision in the history of our nation, Roe v. Wade, opening the door for laws in Kentucky and a number of other states to go into effect protecting the unborn. But I think it's also a reminder, that need to continue to contend for life has only grown in the last 3 years. And I think anyone that's following what's happening in the abortion context realizes that. We pointed to, Susan B. Anthony, one of their research centers had put out data showing, 1.1 million abortions still happening in the United States, and a lot of this is obviously centering around the continued proliferation of the abortion pill.
Yes.
And so
nearly 2/3 of them are through the pill, is what we're finding out with research as well. And the harm to mothers. We talked about that a few weeks ago from that. So, third anniversary of Dobbs. You said the most egregious. I would say that was until 2015, because we just celebrated, unfortunately, the 10th anniversary of the Obergefell decision. And the only reason I say that is not because the taking of human life, especially innocent infants in the womb, is not horrific, but I think foundational to that, and we're finding this out because of the Scrimeti decision and other things, that the decision on Obergefell in 2015, really, they kept chipping away at this until they got to the core, and they said, oh no, civil unions are enough. Then they weren't. Marriage is not enough. We want everybody to agree with our idea of sexual immorality. They wouldn't call it that, but we know scripturally it is. Sexual immorality that includes gender dysphoria and the homosexual, all of these things. And we need to love. We need to love. But love does not mean agree. As a matter of fact, that can be the most unloving thing you can do. And so tied in with that, the 53rd anniversary of Title IX, which plays a role in all this right now. So speak to those, David.
No, you said it well, Greg. The very related to the Roe decision is the Obergefell decision, and the same misunderstanding of the Constitution, the undermining of state laws that were duly enacted to protect preborn life in one instance,
biblical truths
to define marriage in the other. I mean, there are a lot of very close similarities. Martin Cothran, our senior policy analyst, who still does some great communication work with us, he has published a new piece. Encourage folks to go read it. Obergefell and the True Threat to Democracy.
There you go.
Because this is what's interesting to it. In the left, the media has kind of shifted the narrative, and rewrote history leading up to the Obergefell decision. If you were to, I even did this recently, Greg. Google it. Like, how many states had marriage laws defining marriage between a man and a woman, and they kind of whitewash history.
Yes.
Let's not forget that there were over 30 states, I believe 38 states that in some form or fashion had affirmed the truth of what marriage is between a man and a woman. I know at least 30 states had taken, I forget the exact number, but a number of them, including Kentucky, had passed constitutional amendments where voters had actually had the opportunity to
overwhelmingly, 75%, I think.
75% almost of Kentucky voters voted to define marriage as the exclusive union between a man and a woman, and the Supreme Court essentially just got rid of all of that. And let's not forget, it was a 5-4 decision, so it was essentially one swing justice who wrote the opinion, Justice Anthony Kennedy, who wrote the majority opinion. So, we talk a lot, or we're continuing to hear some, particularly those on the left, talk about whether it's Trump or these quote unquote threats to democracy. Well, what is a bigger threat to democracy than effectively one Supreme Court judge in the slimmest of majorities rewriting the most foundational
institution
of human society,
exactly right.
that was correctly and rightly affirmed by
over and over again by
states.
Well, and here's the interesting thing, David. What they did, and we've talked about it before, and it's very clear, and you're going to say a little more about this with Martin's article, I know, but they literally, it was a horrific judicial redefining and therefore legislation from the bench. What is marriage? And they basically threw out millennia of history, of laws, and we know, and I'm going to be speaking in the fall in a couple places about this, that marriage and family from creation on, Genesis on, has been the true foundation of a flourishing society.
Right.
And they wiped it out. I mentioned this to you, and I want you to get these quotes, but maybe a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I quoted Vladimir Lenin, the architect of the Soviet Union, and it was like reading the playbook of the Democratic Party and liberals, and it was horrific.
Yeah.
And he starts with destroy marriage and family, get kids to have sex outside of marriage, those kind of things. This is literally what they did, and they codified it into law from the bench.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the other interesting things, Greg, in just kind of reflecting on the 10-year anniversary of Obergefell, going back and looking at some of the arguments and so forth, is there were even some, and I think you can kind of see this even in the slim majority opinion in this case, where they were making the case that this would be a good thing for marriage.
Yeah.
You know,
just articles. I remember
open it up. This is just going to help ensure that marriage is going to flourish even more.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's look at the reality of where we are. Yeah. You know, I think you and I had the opportunity to talk with David Clausen recently from the Family Research Council, and I remember him saying, they would criticize Christians and conservatives when we would make the argument that this is going to be a slippery slope that leads to a lot of problematic things. It was way more slippery than we even could have imagined. As you and I have talked about, I mean, we have gone from battling over marriage to battling over what it means to be male and female, and essentially subverting all of God's creative order.
And what sex is and what it's for, and if you don't like it, you can destroy the kid that's a product of it. Yeah. It's all heavily interconnected.
Right. In marriage, even traditional marriage is continuing to bear the weight of this redefinition. I remember one of the pastors that I used to have say, anytime you create a something that's a knockoff of something else, you devalue it.
Yeah.
When you have a counterfeit thing, in this case, a counterfeit idea of what marriage is, you devalue it, and we've seen this as marriage rates have continued to drop. Birth, on down the line.
Birth rates are not enough to continue our nation going down the road.
And so ultimately, we're going to have to, Lord willing, and that's one of the cases that we make, that Martin makes in this piece, is that in the same way that the Supreme Court rightly reversed Roe v. Wade and was willing to take that up, we're going to have to get to that point in Obergefell. I know we've got a long ways to go, but we're starting to see some encouraging signs. We've talked about some of the polling that's even come up showing a drop in support.
Right.
We talked a little bit about the Southern Baptist Convention very strongly putting out a statement affirming God's truth about marriage and calling for the overturning of Obergefell. But ultimately, from a public policy standpoint, we're not going to be able to ultimately address, from a policy standpoint, some of the things that are hurting families if we're living in a legal environment that is saying that counterfeit marriage is the law of the land.
The foundation of family, which is marriage. It can be anything you want it to be. It won't work. We don't have a lot of time. I knew we'd get into this, and we'll get into it more, but don't forget, June is Fidelity Month and Life Month. We're just going to leave it at that. Kentucky Family Forum, David.
Yeah, Kentucky Family Forum, Saturday, September 27th. Tickets and tables are on sale. Coach Joe Kennedy will be our keynote speaker. Make plans to join us.
Yeah, thank you. We've got others, and we'll be talking about those as we get closer to it. So thank you for joining us. Thanks always for your prayers, and thank you to the Lord. God bless in Christ. David, thanks you, and please continue to join us. We love the feedback and the comments. You're listening to Greg Williams and David Walls on Family Foundation Friday with the Authority of Love.